Hello everyone, I'm Victory from CE. And today I'm going to talk about 3 brave warriors who faced death and kept fighting, even though they knew it would be the end for them. They were partners with their entire army, and their final battle was legendary. This video is dedicated to them. Dianwei, the Raging Protector. The story of Dianwei is one of rage, loyalty, and sacrifice. Dianwei was a military general serving under the legendary warlord Cao Cao in the late Eastern Han dynasty of China. Dianwei was famed for his godlike strength and his mastery of the Chinese polearm. He lived during the Three Kingdoms period, a time where many famous warriors would fight and die, but none would have such a glorious end as Dianwei. The Three Kingdoms period in China was a time of non-stop war, betrayal and strife. The year is 197 AD, and Cao Cao would invade the territory of Zhang Xiu, who surrendered upon learning of the invasion. However, Zhang Xiu would choose to be cunning rather than bold. He would soon rebel against his new overlord, launching a surprise attack on Cao Cao's camp. The warlord Cao Cao was completely unprepared for this. His noble general, Dianwei, however, would stand guard at the entrance of the camp. Dianwei had a dozen men with him protecting the camp, but they were all killed, and soon enough he stood alone. Hundreds of men with a thirst for blood would charge at him, but he stood tall and fought bravely with his halberd-type weapon. He would swing his polearm and break over 10 enemy spears with each swing. His mastery of combat could not be ignored, and the soldiers of Zhang Xiu would attack him in hordes as they knew they could not best him alone. Dianwei even grabbed 2 men and killed them with his bare hands, betraying his immense strength. However, the hordes of men were able to wound him, as he had many blades coming at him at once. Knowing death was close, he rushed forward and killed as many men as he could before succumbing to his wounds. Even as he knew his time grew to an end, he still swore and glared at his enemy. He eventually bled out, not being killed by one man, but his body simply gave out even when his mind was still in the fight. Cao Cao would mourn his faithful general, as he had just lost one of his greatest and most loyal warriors. Benkei, the Unwavering Monk. The story of the last stand of Benkei is a tale of honor, bravery, and unwavering loyalty. Benkei was a warrior monk who lived in the latter years of the Heian period of Japan. By the age of 17, he was 6'6" tall, which was an absolute monster compared to the rest of the men in Japan at the time. He hated the samurai class, for he thought them to be arrogant and not worthy of their status. Benkei gave himself a mission of taking 1,000 swords from samurai he killed in single combat. He took 999. He would then challenge a man named Yoshitsun in single combat, but he lost. The 2 men then became fierce friends, and Benkei would join Yoshitsun in his adventures and future battles. Many years later, after dozens of battles, his best friend, Samurai Minamoto no Yoshitsun, had been outlawed by his brother, the shogun, who was the military dictator of the country. Benkei and Yoshitsun had been fighting together side by side for years and were the best of friends. When Yoshitsun was outlawed by his brother, Benkei went with him into hiding and became an outlaw by association. The lord who was providing the outlaw's protection would die of old age. His son, fearing the wrath of the shogun, would divulge the location of the 2 outlaws. Yoshitsun and Benkei had prepared for this day, knowing this would be their end and tired of running. Benkei stood guard on a bridge in front of the main gate to protect Yoshitsun while he retired to the inner keep. Hundreds of the shogun's soldiers charged at Benkei. However, they all met a swift death. It is said that he killed in excess of 300 soldiers who came at him man on man. Benkei was the master of 7 weapons but preferred to use his huge spiked war club, his sword, and his iron staff. He would swing his spiked war club at the shogun's soldiers. He was so powerful that 2 or 3 of them at a time would be lifted from the ground, with most of their bones shattering upon impact. He was completely unmatched in combat, except by the man he was protecting. Knowing that facing the monstrous Benkei would mean certain death, the soldiers decided to fire volleys of arrows at him. After hundreds of arrows had been fired, an arrow-filled Benkei remained there standing, guarding the main gate. The man who was rumored to be the son of a demon seemed to be immortal. Some soldiers dared to cross the bridge to take a closer look at Benkei, who was somehow still standing. As they approached, the gigantic man fell to the ground, having died standing upright. This is now known as the standing death of Benkei. Benkei's best friend, Yoshitsun, rather than surrender, killed his own wife and children to prevent them having the dishonor of being captured. He then turned the blade on himself and committed seppuku, a ritualistic form of samurai suicide. The unnamed berserker of Stamford Bridge. This is a tale of rage, loyalty, and bloodshed. The year is 1066, and an unnamed berserker would make his mark on history with steel, bravery, and blood. Even the English would pay their respects to him in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, writing about his valor and how no man could match him. In 1066, King Harald Hardrada of Norway would invade England, trying to claim the English crown as his own. Harold and his army would defeat the forces of the Earl of Mercia and would take over the city of York. The King of England, Harold Godwin's son, soon learned of this. At this point, the army of Northmen were camped at Stamford Bridge, waiting for hostages to be sent to them. Harold Godwin's son and his army marched so quickly across England that they took the Viking force by surprise and began to attack them when they weren't even armed. The Viking force began to flee across a bridge and were being cut down at every angle by armed men who were ready to fight. When the time came for an all-out slaughter, the bridge became a choke point that the English just couldn't cross. This was due to one lone Viking berserker. The huge axeman stood alone on the bridge. He was fearless, facing the entire English army who came charging at him, wanting to kill him quickly to finish off the rest of the Viking force. No one who faced the unnamed Viking head-on lived to tell the tale. He would swing his two-handed great axe like a madman with unlimited energy. It is said that he stood firm on the bridge for such a long time that the Viking army were able to arm themselves and form a shield wall to prepare themselves for the incoming assault. The unnamed Viking berserker killed over 40 Englishmen as none could get past him. The English soldiers would have to step over a mountain of corpses just to get the chance to fight him. All attempts from the English to fight this man ended with a swift death. It is said that weapons and arrows could not hurt him. He seemed to be in a trance, and all he could do was kill his enemy and hold the bridge. Eventually, an English pikeman floated under the bridge on top of a piece of wood and stabbed the unnamed Viking in the groin from the side of the bridge, dropping him to his knees. He was then pounced on by English soldiers and slain, just as they had seen him kill so many of their men. The English soldiers would then wipe out the Viking army and even kill their king, Harald Hardrada, and just like that, the Viking Age came to an end. The legendary deed of one lone, unnamed Viking berserker went down in legend, as it is recorded in both the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle and in many sagas, being one of the most heroic last stands in history. The name of this man died with Harald Hardrada's army. These were 3 great last stands that have gone down in legend. The deeds of these men have been immortalized due to their bravery, loyalty, and love of battle. It's a shame we don't know the name of the lone Viking berserker, but his story will live on forever, as will the tales of the other warriors. If you think there are any other last stands that are worth mentioning, let me know in the comment sections down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to see and hit that notification bell, and I'll see you all soon for another history profile.